Geun says South Korea will greet North Korean defectors with open arms. And the Bank of Korea cuts its growth outlook for next year while keeping the key rate steady. We also take an in-depth look at the country's policies for growth. American music legend Bob Dylan is lauded as a poet as he's handed the 2016 Nobel Prize in Literature, sparking a media frenzy. These and more coming right up. Hello, it's Friday, October 14th here in Seoul. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. President Pak Se-ri has once again given welcoming remarks to North Korean defectors and offered to help them settle here in South Korea. This as she held a meeting with her National Unification Advisory Council on Thursday. Song Ji-sun has our top story.
President Park expressed regret over North Korea's obsession with its nuclear program and said the exodus from North Korea continues because its people are fed up with starvation and oppression, with even high-ranking members of the elite making the journey to freedom.
지금 북한 정권은 가혹한 공포 정치로 북한 주민들의 삶을 지옥으로 몰아넣고 있습니다. 이것은 북한 체제가 비정상적인 방법에 의존하지 않고는 생존조차 어려운 상황에 이르렀다는 것을 잘 보여주는 것입니다.
With the number of defectors now topping 30,000, the president vowed to support them with all necessary measures so they can adapt and settle down in South Korean society.
저는 고통받는 북한 주민들이 대한민국에 와서 자신의 꿈을 자유롭게 실현하고 행복을 추구할 수 있도록 모든 길을 열어놓고 맞이할 것입니다. 특히 탈북 주민들은 미리 온 통일로서 통일 과정과 통일 후에 남북의 주민들이 하나가 되는데 커다란 역할을 할 중요한 인적 자원입니다.
President Park also pledged to provide accurate information about the outside world to the North Korean people so they can recognize their own rights and freedoms. 송지선, Arirang News.
For the third time, Seoul's foreign ministry has called in a high-ranking Chinese diplomat to lodge a complaint over Chinese vessels illegally fishing in Korean waters. The Incheon Coast Guard has conducted a maritime firearm drill, provoking a strong response from Beijing. Kim Jung-soo has more on the exercise.
The Incheon Coast Guard held a special firearms drill Thursdays in Korea's West Sea to train officers in their new authority to use firepower to stop illegal Chinese fishing boats. After an incident last Friday in which a Chinese fishing vessel rammed and sank a Coast Guard boat and then fled the scene, the government said the Coast Guard would be allowed to use firearms such as onboard cannons and handguns. Thursday's drill simulated altercations between the Coast Guard and poachers resisting arrest. A total of 6 vessels were deployed carrying 130 personnel, with each vessel testing an arsenal of naval cannons, Gatling guns, and M60 machine guns. And on the same day as Korea's maritime drill, a Chinese state-run newspaper, the Global Times, claimed that if Korea used naval cannons on Chinese vessels, it could result in direct retaliation. The paper went on to analyze the various weapons the Korean Coast Guard has in its arsenal, including a water cannon that can cause serious bodily harm, as well as the 20 and 40 millimeter naval cannons. It also emphasized that China is armed with state-of-the-art naval technology and weaponry. The paper did, however, clarify that it's highly unlikely a situation would ever escalate to the point of the Korean Coast Guard actually using the naval cannons, saying most conflict situations will likely be resolved through diplomatic talks. According to Korea's Fisheries Ministry, since Tuesday, 6 Chinese vessels have been captured operating in Korean waters, 2 off the coast of Sinan County in Jeollanam-do Province, 2 near Baekneung-do Island, and another 2 near Jeju-do Island. Officials say that over the last 5 years, More than 280,000 Chinese vessels have trespassed into Korean waters, but only 200 have been caught. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
Korea's central bank has cut its growth outlook for the domestic economy to 2.8% for next year, down from its previous projection of 2.9% released in July. Its outlook for this year remained the same at 2.7%. The downgrade comes on the back of increased uncertainties abroad due to Brexit and a possible U.S. rate hike. Korea's central bank forecasts the government's push for corporate restructuring will also dampen economic sentiment. The key rate for October was kept unchanged at 1.25% for the fourth straight month. But in the face of low inflation coupled with the Samsung Note 7 fiasco and a string of labor union strikes challenging growth, expectations are mounting for more rate cuts down the road. However, some experts are calling for a fundamentally different approach. Take a look. Weak investment, stagnant productivity, and lukewarm business and household confidence. These elements that characterize the trend of low growth continue to weigh down governments and especially central banks, pushing them to pump more money into their economies. Korea's central bank is not a stranger to loose monetary policies. The key rate stands at a record low, and it's still under mounting pressure to dive even deeper. But Robert Barro, professor of economics at Harvard University, considered one of the founders of new classical macroeconomics, says the focus has to shift.
I think the Bank of Korea, along with other central banks, has made the nominal interest rate that they control too low, kind of artificially low, and it's a strange kind of policy that you haven't seen before the Great Recession period 2008-9. So I think Korea, along with other central banks, should be moving toward raising nominal rates back toward a more normal range, maybe 3 to 4%. A gradual policy of doing that, pre-announced, would be the best way of doing it. And if the U.S. were to do that, it would be easier for South Korea to follow that. Maybe the Bank of Korea could take the lead instead of waiting for the bigger countries like the U.S. to take an appropriate action. So that would be more daring because it's a smaller economy taking the lead.
Exactly. Do you think that is feasible?
I think it could be feasible, but the details have to be thought out more carefully. I mean, I'm making a suggestion. Maybe you could not wait for the United States.
So would that mean Korea also does not have room for more fiscal stimulus? Barro says.
Fiscal discipline is still important. I mean, Korea has room to spend more money from the public sector, but if to the extent that you do that, you want to focus on projects that are actually productive. So some infrastructure investments can be reasonable, and one can use fiscal capacity to fund that in terms of maybe borrowing to do certain kinds of projects. But one shouldn't do it for its own sake, and one shouldn't do it in terms of demand stimulus. I think you have to emphasize productivity.
Korea also faces longer-term issues like the aging population. What should the government do to raise its growth potential?
Well, flexibility in the labor market is important. So you don't want to have regulations that inhibit firms moving around labor in terms of hiring and firing, for example. Population growth, of course, is very low now in Korea, which is also a standard part of the growth process. Fertility rates are extremely low. I don't think that's necessarily a negative. Some people have argued that the government should be doing all kinds of things to counter the declining trend in fertility. There are a lot of things you can do to subsidize basically people having children in terms of making it easier to have child care services or educational services. And I don't think that that's a central part of a development strategy. And I think mostly fertility reflects choices that people make, particularly in the context of more women working full-time in the labor market, and I don't regard that as a negative. It's partly reflective of people just getting richer, better education.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Professor.
Thank you.
And American singer-songwriter Bob Dylan has become the surprise winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature. Described as a great poet in the English-speaking tradition, the iconic artist was awarded the accolade for reinventing himself constantly over a 55-year musical career. Lee Min-young has more.
The 75-year-old U.S. singer-songwriter Bob Dylan has been awarded the 2016 Nobel Prize for Literature by the Swedish Academy on Thursday. It was a surprise decision to give one of the world's most prestigious cultural awards to a singer-songwriter instead of a novelist.
Bob Dylan.
The Nobel Prize in Literature for 2016 is awarded to Bob Dylan for having created new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition.
Bob Dylan is the first songwriter to win the prestigious award. Also, he is the first American to win the Nobel Prize in Literature since novelist Toni Morrison in 1993. Dylan was born Robert Ellen Zimmerman in 1941. He began his musical career in 1959 and took his stage name from the poet Dylan Thomas. He is best known for his works which dates from the 1960s, such as Blowing in the Wind, Masters of War, Subterranean Homesick Blues, and Like a Rolling Stone. Last year, the Swedish Academy gave the award to Svetlana Alexievich, a Belarusian author and investigative journalist, for her works about key events affecting Belarus during and after the Soviet era. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
The world's longest reigning monarch, Thai King Bhumibol, has died. The Southeast Asian country has now started a year of national mourning, a clear indication of the level of devotion the Thai people have for the royal family. The Thai Prime Minister asked that nobody let the country be taken advantage of in its time of crisis. Barry Welsh reports.
Thai King Bhumibol Adulyadej, the world's longest-serving monarch, has died at the age of 88.
King Bhumibol Adulyadej had been hospitalized at Sidiat Hospital since Friday 3rd October 2014. He died peacefully at Sidiat Hospital at the age of 89 and had been on the throne for 70 years.
The revered king's death ends 7 decades on the throne, during which he became a unifying father figure and rare source of stability in a country that has weathered more than a dozen coups since he came to power in 1946 at 18 years old. The Thai Prime Minister, Prayuth Chan-o-cha, said that an heir to King Bhumibol has been designated since 1972 and that the government would inform Parliament of the choice.
My beloved Thai people, despite how sad we are during this time, the beloved nation of the people and of our belated king has to uphold. This country has to keep going. The king wished to see his kingdom move forward, people live with happiness and compassion. Don't let his wish be obstructed by his death.
The heir has not yet been announced, but it is widely expected to be Crown Prince Maha. King Bhumibol was a much-beloved monarch, and his passing leaves Thailand in a state of mourning and political uncertainty. Barry Welsh, Arirang News.
The UN General Assembly has unanimously elected former Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Guterres as the next UN Secretary General. He will succeed Ban Ki-moon, who finishes his second 5-year term at the end of the year. In his acceptance speech, Guterres expressed the need to fight for peace, alluding to the rising threat of terrorism and xenophobia around the world. In particular, he said it's the world's moral duty to end the suffering in war-ravaged Syria. He also highlighted the importance of gender equality, calling it a priority commitment of the UN to protect and empower women. 10 people have been killed and 7 injured after a tourist bus burst in flames on the Gyeongbu Expressway on Thursday night here in Korea. Police in the southeastern city of Ulsan say the bus was carrying 20 people when one of its tires exploded and slammed into a guardrail. The people who survived the inferno were taken to hospital to receive treatment for smoke inhalation and other injuries. The passengers were retirees of Hanwha Chemical Company and their spouses. They were on their way to Ulsan from Daegu Airport after returning from a trip to China. The trailblazer in Korean women's golf, Pak Se-ri, has retired from the professional circuit. On Thursday, the 39-year-old was given an emotional send-off as she withdrew after the first round of the LPGA KEB Hana Bank Championship in Korea. Pak burst onto the scene in 1998 and became the first Korean golfer to win a major. During a time when the nation was hit hard by the Asian financial crisis, she instilled a sense of can-do spirit with her barefooted swing in a water-filled bunker that made highlight reels the world over. She went on to win 4 more majors and 25 tour wins throughout her career and subsequently inspired a generation of Korean women golfers that have dominated the sport since. Recently, she coached the women's golf team at the Rio Olympics, helping Pak In-bi win gold. She was also inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2007. And that wraps it up for now. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in less than 2 hours for more news updates, so do stay tuned and goodbye for now.